Hello, hello, and welcome to the Journal Star Sportswriters podcast. I'm your host, Adam Duvall. We're here talking Week 1 high school football with small school beat writer Stan Morris, Dave Reynolds, large school beat writer. Welcome, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm the old man sitting here, but I'm a rookie as far as the prep podcast goes, so we'll see how this goes.
And I'm just old, so I don't know.
Dave, you've never had football as one of your beats in your illustrious career?
I never have. I've kind of filled in here and there, football at a lot of different levels, but never as really a beat per se. So this is new territory for me.
All right, well, I'm going to pick on you right away. Let's hop into the storylines for the large schools. You got the Big 12. You have the Middle Illini. What's one thing that you've seen in your preview leading up to tomorrow night that kind of sticks out to you?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple things because I couldn't narrow it down to one. But Peoria High, 3 years removed from state title. Last year they were 4-5. They struggled. They had some injuries. Almost the whole team back. I think I had 14 starters back. So that's a team I think could really make some noise in the Big 12, be a contender. They're talented. They're fast. They seem like they have the whole package offensively and defensively. And I'm real interested to see how they do. The other one, I guess, the power in the area the last few years, Washington. Made it to the quarterfinals last year before they were finally beaten. And that was a team, a real veteran team. A lot of 3-year starters. All those guys are gone now. But the kids making up this year's team were solid as underclass players and as backups last year for the most part. Some of them played, but it's a whole new team for Darryl Crouch, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how that ball club comes together.
New quarterback,
Brady Klein. He was a starter. He was a receiver and in the secondary last year, but first time he's been calling signals as a full-time starter.
Okay. Is there anything else that sticks out to you, Dave?
It's a year that is a little unpredictable, I guess, from at least the Middle Illini standpoint, because all those teams were veteran teams last year, the top teams, and most of those kids graduated. And so they're restocking, reloading, whatever word you want to use for the most part. But Dunlap, Metamora, Morton, Pekin, they all have what appears to be good teams and talented teams. Not as experienced as last year, but it'll be really intriguing to watch that conference play out.
You mentioned Peoria High. A note about them. Like you said, they went 4-5. They lost 3 games by a combined 7 points, including 1-point losses to Normal West and Champaign Central.
Yeah.
So, be interesting to see how that turnaround happens for them.
Yeah, and their quarterback, Gabe Hernandez, missed about 3 games last year with an injury, and if they can keep him healthy, he's a real solid QB for him.
Right. Stan, let's jump over to the Smalls. What can we be expecting to see from our Metro teams that play in 1A, 2A, 3A, even the 4A?
Yeah. Well, I'll throw a few things out there as far as, coming into this year, some of the big storylines certainly are teams that are coming back with a lot of talent coming back. And look at Eureka probably stands out the most. 9 guys on each side of the ball coming back from a team that came so close to getting to the quarterfinals last year in 3A. They've got, the dynamic quarterback and Matt Martin who can run, can pass, and those have some speedy receivers. They have most of their rushing yards coming back, and so it'll be exciting to see what the step that they make, because they were kind of young last year and they're still young, really. But all of their linemen coming back and those kind of things. But and then IVC is another team that brings back a lot of starters. A lot of those guys have been 3-year starters. They were 5-4. They won the last 4 games to get into the playoffs last year. Alex Merlo, quarterback, he's been there 3 years, and so they're looking, for exciting things to happen there. Tremont's another team that has a lot of kids back from last year. They finished 5-4 too. Didn't make the playoffs because of the points that they had. Because they lost a couple close games last year, which I can see them kind of turning those into wins this year with some of those veteran guys, coming back again. And then you look at the standouts of year in and year out. You have Farmington, who's coming off of 3 consecutive 9-0 regular seasons, and they lost a lot from last year. Had a really decorated senior class, but they have some talent there coming back as well, and so has some really strong receiving core, and that spread offense that they have. Going to plug in a quarterback. Josh McMillan is their quarterback this year. He's kind of as a junior, so we'll be kind of see what they're like. They're going to be young this year, but they still have quite a bit of talent. Elmwood, again, is another one that lost a lot, but they just kind of seem to plug in people, and they'll kind of do the same thing this year too. So it's kind of one of those, you either had a lot of teams with a lot back or not very many kids back, but we'll see going forward. One thing that's kind of fun as far as the small schools go, we've got a couple coaches whose sons are going to be in the starting quarterback role. So one of those actually would be Noah Hollis from Elmwood Brimfield. He is sophomore. Both of these guys I'm going to talk about are sophomores. Noah's would have been a sophomore starter for Elmwood, but he kind of had a broken foot in the beginning of the summer, and this week in practice somebody stepped on that foot, and so he's in a walking boot now, and so he's going to be out for a few weeks, but eventually he's going to be starting. And the other one that's is Dane Winkler from Lewistown. So the oldest tenured coaches in the Prairie Land are going to have sophomore sons playing for them at quarterback, and the Winklers have been notoriously linemen, but here we have a quarterback. He's 6'2", 195, and so they've all kind of worn number 65s. He'll wear number 11. It's kind of 6 plus 5. So
okay.
That's how he's going to do that. So that's kind of cool. But so it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. With you're going to have those guys that weren't playing behind some really talented guys stepping forward into those new roles of starting and see what they can do. And we'll see that in the next few weeks. We'll see those guys kind of rise.
So the state rankings came out yesterday, obviously preseason rankings. Eureka checked in at number 3 in 3A. Princeton 7 in 3A. Fieldcrest was 10 in 2A. Anawan Weathersfield 10 in 1A. Farmington and Princeville. Farmington in 3A. Princeville in 1A. Among those receiving votes. Mm-hmm. Stan, was there any of those rankings that maybe surprised you, or did you kind of think those teams belong where they do in those first ranks?
I think Eureka surprised as far as how high they were up. I mean, they even surprised Jason Bachman, their coach. I mean, he expected them to maybe be ranked, but to see them at number 3, it's a little bit of a surprise. I mean, they certainly have the talent in coming back to make some noise there, but I was kind of surprised to see him that high in the rankings, but deservedly so. And if you look at the rankings, you see a whole lot of Heart of Illinois, large that conference is just going to be loaded. Tri-Valley's ranked, and GCMS is ranked, and then you've got Fieldcrest is in the rankings too. So, and then you've got Eureka. So all those teams are in the same conference. So that should be
rough and tumble HOI for sure.
HOI.
Dave, go ahead, Stan.
They've had the last 4 state champions, so who knows? That could kind of keep on going.
Dave, over on the large school, we had 2 Middle Illini schools ranked. Washington at 8 in 6A, Metamora 10 in 5A. Then you mentioned Peoria High, just the reputation of their program. I mean, they receive votes in 6A. What is it about Washington and Metamora? It seems like every year that they're just among the state's elite.
They just have built great programs. The coaching staffs have been stable for decades, and those are the fan interest. The resources are there. Facilities are great. They're just, one of those, you think of them as football schools. I mean, Metamora longer than Washington. Metamora's been to the playoffs, I think, 23 of the last 25 years, and three state titles. So Washington hasn't won a state title for a long time, since '85, I believe. But they made some noise. They were the best team by far last year in the Mid-Illini. They won their games by an average of 30 points, all their conference games. So not as much head and shoulders above the league this year, as I mentioned earlier, but they're just they're football schools, and they've got it going.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. We'll go to games of the week. Both Stan and Dave will be out covering games. I will be roving a little bit. We'll talk about that at the end. But Stan, your game of the week. Where are you headed, and what can you expect?
Heading to Tremont, the old Route 9 rivalry game, right? So that's always a good one, fun. So that'll be the game of the week as far as the small schools. And last year was I believe it was like a 1-point game.
14-13.
DMAC pulled it out, but Tremont actually kind of led the statistical battle. Had a couple fumbles in the second half that kind of hurt them. So I can see Tremont. It's at Tremont. I can see them, maybe getting revenge for that. DMAC has won the last 5 of those games, but Tremont certainly brings some returning guys who would like to reverse that streak that DMAC has right now.
Tremont wins that game. They're in the playoffs last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
They went 5-4, not enough playoff points. They go 6-3. They get that.
Right.
That victory, and they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, how about you? Where are you headed?
I'm going to Metamora Friday night. They play Champaign Central, which was a middle-of-the-pack team last year in the Big 12. They look to be pretty solid this year. I think it could be a good game. I would pick Metamora to win. But another game that's on the road that will be really interesting to see the outcome is Washington at Sycamore. 2 ranked teams. Sycamore is number 6, I believe, in 5A. Washington number 8 in 6A. And Sycamore, I talked to Daryl Crouch earlier today. Their program, he compared to his team last year. They have a veteran group coming back. They lost to Montini in the second round of the playoffs last year, and Daryl said they should have won that game. So he's concerned about his week 1 opponent on one hand. On the other hand, he's excited to have a team that they can, the caliber of team they'll see in the playoffs. Not only week 1 but week 2 when they play Belleville West. So that's a really strong start. They could be 0-2 going into the conference, but it'll be a pretty strong 0-2 because they're going to get tested. I might mention too, Saturday night, Notre Dame at Normal West. Normal West, probably the favorite in the Big 12. They won 10 games last year and have most of that group back. And Notre Dame lost to them twice last year. Opener and down there, both games were played in Normal. The opener and then in the playoffs, the first round of the playoffs. And West handled it pretty well, but Notre Dame with its wing T offense can give everybody fits, because people aren't prepared for that so well. And so that will be that at the stadium, that game on Saturday night at 7. So that would be definitely a good one to take in.
Mm-hmm. Rounding out the Big 12, we have Peatone at Manual, Peoria High's at Champaign Centennial, Richwood's at Normal Community. IVC starts Illini Prairie play right off the bat with a trip to Tolono Unity. The other games in the Middle Illini, Limestone at Lincoln, Dunlap at Galesburg, East Peoria at Streeter, Mantino at Canton, Rochelle at Pekin, Morton at LaSalle, Peru. And then for the Metro Small School, we have Ridgewood at Heights Quest, Leroy at Eureka, like Stan mentioned, Mid-County at Elmwood Brimfield, Princeville at Lewistown, and Stark County at Farmington. Any of those on the small school side besides yours kind of stand out You're maybe interested to see what the final score is on.
Well, Princeville at Lewistown should be an interesting game. Last year, with Princeville with having just senior-dominated team, a team that had really high expectations of going a long way in the playoffs, with some really talented skill guys, and Lewistown took them into overtime last year with, I believe it was 14-7 final score. And this year it's at Lewistown. Both these teams are relatively young. I mean, Princeville lost a lot of that senior group, obviously. They lost their seniors, but they have a talented junior class that, didn't lose any games on the fresh-off level. I can see where they'll kind of keep still being somebody to be looked on in the Lincoln Trail Conference as tough. But Lewistown certainly has given them fits. It's one of those interesting games too, because it's one of those 1A game where it's just one town against another town. You don't really see that too much anymore in the small schools with a lot of the co-ops and those kind of things. So, and they kind of pride themselves in that, and so that could be fun to see what happens with that game.
All right, so moving on to fantasy football. We did this last year. We started this about week 4 or 5. Dave is a newcomer.
I get to go first, huh?
Yep. Okay, so how it works is we'll pick a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver. You can only pick them once for the regular season. Once the playoff hits, reset, you can pick whoever you want. So we're going to start with Dave. Give me your quarterback first.
I'll go with Ben Corey of Notre Dame.
Ben Corey at Notre Dame.
Returning starter. I know it's a tough opponent, but he'll obviously get a lot of snaps because I think that game will go to the end. So, and he's a big play guy. I think he can make some things happen at quarterback.
All right. Stan, how about you? Who's your quarterback?
My quarterback, it's kind of it's one of those things kind of tough to bring out the big guns in the first week, but you kind of want to do that with some of the unproven talent that you don't really know what's going to happen with them. So I got to go with Matt Martin from Eureka. A guy that's going to get a lot of rushing yards. He's going to get some. They're going to probably pass the ball a little bit more than they did last year. They've got 2 really quick receivers there that and have some height. Actually, I've got more than just 2, but they've got 2 coming from the track team that really going to help out the deep ball for those guys. But I got to go with Matt Martin.
All right, Stan. You can see that I have mine typed out. I also picked Matt Martin. I'm in Stan's camp. You got to get a good week 1.
I'll say Matt Martin. I can use small school guys later, right?
Yeah, absolutely, okay. absolutely. Stan, we'll go back to you. Who's going to be your running back this week?
My running back, I'm going to go with Nate Wynn, Tremont.
Okay.
They have the 1-2 punch there. I mean, Nate is going up against the DMAC team that he's been injured the last 2 times that he's met DMAC. He's gotten a high ankle sprain off of. So I think he's going to want to, really do some good things in that game, kind of come away injury-free, and he's got, speed to get break away and do some damage. So I'm going to go with Nate.
Okay. Dave, how about you? Who's your running back?
I'm going to go with Zach Poston from Metamora.
Okay.
He's the most experienced returning guy in that backfield. Again, it's going to be a close game, I think, and he should be in there most of the way. I haven't seen him play much, but what I remember of him, he's quick, and I think he can pile up some yards.
Okay. Well, I'm also staying in the HOI, but I'm going with Nate Wynn's counterpart, Caden Buster of Tremont. He had a great year last year. I think he scored 11 touchdowns. So I'm expecting some good points out of him. Mm-hmm. Dave, let's start with you. Wide receiver. Who are you going with?
I'll go with Kavion Mack. He's kind of the obvious pick here. The top recruitable guy in the conference. Or not in the conference, but in the city. He's got size. I think they're going to throw more this year. Their receiving core is just outstanding, and he's at the top of the heap. So I'll go with Kavion.
All right. Stan, how about you?
I'm going to save Kavion for down the road when I might need that. I'm actually going to go with small schools guy for now. I'm going to go with Blake Springer out of Farmington. Hayden Brought's one of his favorite targets last year, and this year with a new quarterback, he's going to be one that I think that quarterback's going to go to. So I think he'll have a big game.
Brought out the big gun as well. I'm going Kavion Mack. So we will, how it works in week 2, we'll go over the tallies of who won the week. We'll do week 2 picks. Remember, you only get 1 week per regular season. Once the playoffs start, you can pick whomever you want. Our last segment before we close out today, we're doing some picks. So we're going to do the games of the week. Stan, you're at Tremont DMAC, Metamora, Champaign Central for Dave. Dave, I do believe you said in talking about that you would pick Metamora. So are you staying with that pick?
Yeah, you need a score?
You know what? Give me a score.
28-14.
28-14. Okay. Stan, how about you?
Yeah, I got to go with Metamora on that one. I mean, it's hard to not to go with Metamora on that in week 1, and maybe a touchdown. I'll go a little closer.
Game. Okay. Yeah. Pulling up, I submitted some picks earlier. I had Metamora winning this game 26-20. All right. So Stan says by a touchdown, and I said 26-20. All right, Stan, let's go back over to you. Your game of the week, DMAC Tremont. DMAC won 14-13. They finished 3-6. And basically, like I said, kept Tremont out of the playoffs last year.
Right.
So who are you taking?
You know, in those kind of games, like you say, one of those rivalry games, it could go pretty much either way. But I really see Tremont taking that game. This is a third year under Zach Zaire in their system, and I see them being able to run the ball, and that's certainly their forte. They're gonna run the ball, and DMAC's gonna do a little bit of the same thing too. But I see Tremont coming away with probably a couple touchdowns.
Okay. Dave, how about you? Who do you have? Tremont?
I agree with the Tremont pick. I think it'll be much closer than that. I wrote down 21-20 here.
Did you?
And I mean, you talk about a rivalry game.
Yeah.
They can go either way. I know Tremont definitely is going to have the momentum. They're at home. But I just think that this one could be pretty close.
And I actually have Tremont winning this game 28-27.
Ooh.
So
Another close game.
Another close game. So our wild card pick of the week, this is to break the tiebreaker because, Dave, we keep track of how we do on picks. So, it's big competition here. We're going Notre Dame and Normal West. Like Dave said, Normal West won week 1, 44-13, and then they met the first round of the playoffs and won 34-21. And Normal West finished 10-2 last year. Dave, who do you have?
I got Normal West 28-21.
Okay.
I think it'll be a good game, but I don't think that Notre Dame can quite match their firepower.
All
right. Stan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Normal West on that. I know it's Notre Dame. It's home. I see that game being in the 30s, though. I can see some points being scored in that game. But 35-34, we'll go that. 35-34.
I had the old scorekeeper getting a workout. I have Normal West 42-28. So a lot of points on Saturday night at the stadium. So Stan will be at DMAC in Tremont. Dave Reynolds will be at Metamora, Champaign Central. Dave Aminian, he's going to start his night at the stadium at Manual, hosting Piatone. He'll head over to the Heights to catch some of the Ridgewood Heights game. He'll be writing about this is the Heights last year as 11-man. So they're making that transition next year to 8-man, dropping the co-op with Quest. I will start my night in Canton They're hosting Peatone. I'll go over to Farmington. They have Stark County. And I'll end my night in Elmwood.
Canton's hosting Mantino.
Mantino. Farmington has Stark County, and Elmwood has Mid-County. So I will be hitting that west central Illinois trio right there. Follow all of our coverage online, pjstar.com/sports. If you're on Twitter, join the conversation by adding hashtag PGSPreps. For Dave Reynolds and Stan Morris, I'm Adam Duvall. Bye for now.
Okay.